Hi students, I welcome you to yet another video on Lending Banker. And as I was telling you in the previous video, uh, there are different charges on securities that are given by the borrower to the bank. So what is the meaning of charge? Charge refers to the hold that a bank would be having, that is a legal hold that the bank will be having as regarding the guarantee given by the borrower. So when banks make advances or gives loan against various goods and immovable properties, they have different types of legal hold on such securities, and the forms of legal hold can be explained in the following ways. One such charge is lien. We have already discussed about lien when we did the chapter on banker and customer. So lien can be of two types. One is general lien and the other one is particular lien. So here I will start with the pledge as well as hypothecation and mortgage. I've spoken to you about this earlier as well, but let me give you further explanation on the same. So as I told you, charge refers to the legal hold that the bank will be having on properties of the borrower. So we use the term charge or legal hold interchangeably. Both means the same thing. So what is the meaning of pledge? Pledge refers to a bailment of goods which is given as security for the payment of debt. So whenever a borrower takes money from the bank and gives his property to the bank, the person giving the property is called the pledger or the pawner, and the person in whose name the property is pledged is called the pledgee or the pawnee. The spelling of pledger is P-L-E-D-G-E-R, and the spelling of pawner is P-A-W-N-E-R. Also the spelling of pledgee is P-L-E-D-G-E-E, and the spelling of pawnee is P-A-W-N-E-E. So generally when you give goods such as your gold, jewelry, or a document of title to goods, these are all tangible securities and they offer a personal security regarding a promise to pay the money back to the banker. So such tangible securities which are visible and which can be easily sold by the bank or which can be transferred by the bank is called as a pledge. So the bank has to follow certain guidelines while accepting the goods as given as security under a pledge. What are they? The the guidelines that the bank has got to follow is uh, enter into a oral or written contract between themselves and the person who is pledging the property. Normally this will be a written agreement and not a oral agreement. The pledge should contain a statement about the amount which is being borrowed and the reason for borrowing, the time duration for which the borrowing is done, and the terms and conditions under which the borrowing is done. It's also essential that under a pledge, the physical delivery of the property is done, which means that the borrower has to hand over the property to the banker. So in pledge, there is always a movable property involved and the possession of the property is handed over to the banker because the loan is between the bank and the borrower. So the ownership of the goods will be retained with the pledger. That means the person who is pledging the property with the bank. The ownership will remain with the pledger, but the possession of the goods will be there with the bank. Also, it must be noted that You cannot create a pledge with respect to future goods. Future goods means goods which are going to be obtained in the future. Pledge can be created only with respect to existing goods. It is preferable for the bank to enter into a written agreement with the pledgee, with the pledger. The bank should enter into a written agreement with the pledger, because oral or implied agreement can be quite unsafe. And if the pledger does not pay the money on the loan, then the bank is entitled to sell the asset and recover the amount of the loan. So another advantage in a pledge is that because the property is in the hands of the bank, the property cannot be misappropriated by the pledger. Also, the pledger cannot create a second charge by acquiring another loan from another bank or person. So therefore, the property is protected against a second charge, and the banker holds the possession of the property. So therefore, until the charge is cleared, the bank will continue to hold the property. And if the pledger becomes insolvent, or for some other reason the pledger is not interested in paying the money, the banker is secured to the extent of the value of goods pledged and can sell off the goods and recover their money. So these are the advantages of pledge. Now let's talk about hypothecation. Hypothecation is another form of charge or legal hold. It is a charge against property for an amount of debt where neither ownership nor possession is passed to the creditor. So you saw in the case of pledge that the property was in the hands of the bank. That means property was in the hands of the creditor. But in the case of hypothecation, neither ownership nor possession is passed to the creditor. So hypothecation is also with respect to movable property, but the goods continue to remain with the borrower. In the case of pledge, the goods were in the hands of the creditor, that is the lender, but in the case of hypothecation, the goods will be with the borrower. The borrower gives only a letter stating that the goods are hypothecated to the banker as security for the loan granted. For example, if an advance is made to a building contractor against work in progress, now this work cannot be taken in possession by a banker, but it can be hypothecated and advances can be made against such work. Even in the case of raw materials or semi-finished goods, the transfer of goods into the possession of the banker as a security is not a practical idea. Therefore, the banker may hypothecate the goods and make advances. So many a times we see behind auto rickshaws kind of a poster is put in which it is mentioned that the vehicle is hypothecated to such and such bank. So generally hypothecation takes place by executing a letter by the borrower, which is called as the letter of hypothecation. Now this document empowers the bank to take possession of the property whenever they wish to do so, and get the dues cleared whenever the borrower is at default. So letter of hypothecation is essentially an agreement between the banker and the borrower, and it contains the rights conferred on the bankers and some contingencies which are as follows. This letter of hypothecation will mention that the property which is hypothecated is free from encumbrance. Free from encumbrance means nobody else has got a claim against that property. There will also be a statement containing the description of the goods, the quality, quantity, and the value. There will be a confirmation from the borrower that the particulars provided in the letter of hypothecation is true as per their knowledge. The letter of hypothecation will also contain an undertaking that the borrowers are the absolute owners of the property and they have the interest to hypothecate. The letter of hypothecation would also contain a provision that any sale proceeds of the hypothecated property will become the bank's property and will be paid in satisfaction of the claim of the banker. So again, to summarize the features of hypothecation, I would say that in case of hypothecation as a charge on securities, neither the possession nor ownership of property is transferred to the banker. Hypothecation is an equitable charge created against movable property and sometimes against immovable property. There are two rights which the banker has got in the case of hypothecation. One is to take possession of the property whenever they find that whenever they want to, and the second one is to sell the hypothecated goods in case of default by the borrower to repay the borrowed money. If selling right is not included in the letter of hypothecation, the bank can approach the court of law to recover the dues against the hypothecated property. For bankers, hypothecation is not as safe as pledge because the hypothecated goods can be sold to the genuine purchaser for value without knowledge of the banker, or the hypothecated property can be pledged to another person provided the pledgee has no knowledge of the previous hypothecation. So in such circumstances, hypothecation is not as safe as pledge. You remember when I spoke to you about pledge, I told that the in case of pledge, since the goods are there with the bank, nobody else can have a second charge on the asset. Similarly, the pledger cannot sell off the property, whereas in the case of hypothecation, both these things are possible. So the precaution that the bank has got to take is the bank should ask the borrower to bring letter from other banks in the locality to the effect that goods are not hypothecated to any of the banks. The bank should also obtain personal guarantee to ensure that the money will be repaid by the borrower. Similarly, the bank should obtain periodical statements and inspect this hypothecated property at frequent intervals to see that the goods are maintained or the property is maintained properly by the person, by the borrower, and there is a physical verification of the goods. The property should not be manipulated and the value of the hypothecated property should not be depreciating, because the bank should be in a position to sell the property if there is a default in the payment schedule, and the bank should be in a position to recover the amount of the loan. The bank should ensure that the hypothecated goods are insured against theft, fire, etc., so that they can get the full value of the loan. The next charge on securities is called mortgage, and mortgage is always a charge on immovable properties, and when there is a transfer of interest in a specific immovable property for the purpose of acquiring money, then we call it as mortgage. The person who transfers the interest of a specific property is called as the mortgager, and the person in whose favor the interest in property is transferred is called the mortgagee. So we know that the borrower is the mortgager and the bank is regarded as the mortgagee. The principal amount of loan and the interest of payment is called the mortgage money, and the document through which this loan is arranged is called the mortgage deed. So some of the legal aspects involved in mortgage is that it is always regarded as a charge against immovable property, whereas pledge is always with respect to movable property, and hypothecation can be against movable or immovable property. Mortgage is always with respect to immovable property. Now, when a mortgage is arranged, the interest in the property is transferred to the creditor, which in our case is the bank, for a consideration. That means the bank will give the advance, or will lend money to the borrower. The physical possession of the property is not essential. Obviously, you cannot shift an immovable property. Therefore, physical possession is not important. Uh, so the possession of the property quite often remains with the mortgager. If the mortgager does not fulfill his obligation of returning back the borrowed money as per the stipulation, the mortgagee, that is the bank, can claim their right to the property and satisfy their claim against the mortgage property. Now there are different types of mortgage and we'll discuss them one by one. The first one is simple mortgage. Simple mortgage, as the name suggests, is the basic form of mortgage wherein the mortgager executes a deed, which means a mortgage deed, wherein he mentions that he will be liable to pay to the mortgagee the mortgage money, and agrees that in the event of his failure to pay the money, the mortgagee can sell the property, that is the mortgage property, with the intervention of the court and appropriate the proceeds towards the mortgage money. That means the mortgagee or the bank can sell the property which has been mortgaged with them with the help of the court and take the proceeds from the selling of the property towards recovering the amount. So simple mortgage gives the right to the mortgagee to sell the property. So in such mortgages, only the title deed of the property is kept with the mortgagee. The property will remain with the mortgager. The mortgagee can sell the property when the borrower is at default only with the intervention of the court. So this is very important. The court's involvement will be there when the mortgagee wants to sell the mortgaged property. The next type of mortgage is called equitable mortgage. Equitable mortgage is also known as mortgage by deposit of title deeds. Now this type of mortgage was generally applicable to the towns of Kolkata, Madras, Mumbai, because the state governments, these were the metropolitan cities of our country, and the state government by notification in the official gazette would specify that such a mortgage can take place in the jurisdiction of the states. So in such mortgage, the document of title to immovable property was delivered to the creditor. Creditor is the person who was lending the money with the intent to create security thereon. Therefore, it was called as mortgage by deposit of title deeds. Now the advantage of such type of mortgage is that it saved on stamp duty and only minimum formalities were required to be observed. The disadvantages of equitable mortgage was that if a borrower failed to pay the money, the creditor, that is the banker, had to go to the court, and this would amount to a great deal of delay and was therefore expensive. So to avoid this, an agreement was incorporated to give authority to the mortgagee to sell the property. So to summarize equitable mortgage, or in other words mortgage by deposit of title deeds, I would like to say that This was created only in the cities of Calcutta, Madras and Bombay, and any other city which was notified by the respective state governments. Equitable mortgage can also be created in any other place in India, but they have to be deposited only in the notified cities. And in this type of mortgage, there was no need to execute a mortgage deed. Only what was required was to deposit title deeds. That means equitable title to the property. Therefore, it helped in saving on stamp duty and observing all the formalities. And the mortgage could be completed quickly and without making it very public. The next type of mortgage is usufructuary mortgage. Spelling of this is USUFRUCTUARY. Now this type of mortgage is where the mortgager delivers possession of the property expressly or by implication, and he binds himself to deliver possession of the property to the mortgagee and authorizes the mortgagee to retain possession until payment of the mortgage money and to receive the rent and profits occurring from the property. The same can be appropriated towards payment of interest or payment of mortgage money. To put it simply, the mortgagee can enjoy the benefits of the mortgaged property, which means that when the property is mortgaged, the mortgagee can reap the benefits or take the yield from the property and apply that towards the payment of interest on the borrowed loan. So mortgager thus under usufructuary mortgage, the mortgagee will be enjoying the benefits of the property, mortgaged property, in the form of rent and yield, and that rental benefit or yield will be used towards payment of the interest component of the mortgaged money or the principal amount of the mortgaged money. So in this type of a mortgage, the mortgager delivers the possession of the mortgaged property to the mortgagee. Now, if the mortgager fails to bring a suit for redemption within 30 years, the mortgagee will become the absolute owner of the property. So, these are the features of usufructuary mortgage. Now, let's understand the features of English mortgage. In English mortgage, there is an absolute transfer of the mortgaged property to the mortgagee by the mortgager, and there will be a condition that on repayment of mortgage money, the mortgage property must be retransferred to the mortgager. So the mortgager is liable to pay the mortgage money on a specified date, and the mortgagee can sue the mortgager for recovery and get a court decree for sale. Any mortgage money which is for more than ₹100 should be in the form of a registered deed. So you see that here the important feature is that there is an absolute transfer of the mortgaged property by the mortgager to the mortgagee, and there will also be a condition that the mortgage property has to be retransferred to the mortgager on repayment of the mortgage money. So these are different variants of mortgages that is carried out. The next one is mortgage by conditional sale. What this means is that the mortgager conditionally sells the mortgaged property. This can happen on default of payment of mortgaged money on a certain date, or on such payment being made, the sale shall become void, or on such payment being made, the buyer, that is the third party, shall transfer the property to the seller. Let's simplify this, the understanding of this mortgage. Mortgage by conditional sale means that the sale is conditional. So if the mortgagor fails to pay the money on the due date, the sale by the mortgagee becomes real or absolute. To convert this conditional sale to an absolute sale, the mortgagee should obtain a court decree. In this type of mortgage, there is no personal liability on the part of the mortgagor to pay the debt. The banker does not normally prefer this type of mortgage. Now suppose the mortgagor pays the money on the due date, this conditional sale becomes void. Void means sale cannot take place and the property will be retransferred to the mortgagor. So if the mortgagee if the mortgagor is paying the money on the due date, the conditional sale becomes void and the third party has to transfer the property to the seller. So if the payment is made, the third party has to transfer the property to the seller. This is what it means. So mortgage by conditional sale is, I'll repeat, where the mortgagor conditionally sells the mortgage property on the condition that 1. On default of payment of mortgaged money, the sale will become absolute or real. Or point number 2, on such payment being made, the sale will become void. Or point number 3, on such payment being made, the third party shall transfer the property to the seller. Now let's look at the last type of mortgage, which is called as anomalous mortgage. Spelling is ANOMALOUS. Now where you cannot classify a mortgage in under any of the previously mentioned type of mortgages, such as simple mortgage or mortgage by conditional sale, English mortgage, usufructuary mortgage, or mortgage by deposit of title deeds, then we call this as anomalous mortgage. So anomalous mortgage can be a combination of any two mortgages that was previously discussed, or it can be a mortgage which does not fall under any of the above categories. Now when we say combination of any two mortgages, it could be, for example, a combination of simple and usufructuary mortgage, or an usufructuary mortgage combined with mortgage with conditional sale, and so on. This type of mortgage is also generally not preferred by bankers. So banks also do not show much of preference for mortgage by conditional sale, and banks do not show much preference for anomalous mortgage. Now that you have understood the different types of securities or charges that can be made on properties in the form of lien, pledge, hypothecation and mortgage, the banks will decide what type of charge to be levied depending upon the nature of loans. So I'll see you in the next video with more information on lending banker. Thank you for listening.